So this is a banana. The banana is yellow. It has great curves and body lines. It's pretty similar to its ancestors. And behind it is something remarkably the same as the banana here. The Porsche 911.
What? Is that the intro?
Yeah.
So hello and welcome back to Short Shift. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Krish.
And today what we have here is the 2023 911 992 generation Carrera S. And it absolutely feels like a 2023 model with this digital cockpit and this infotainment screen, this brand new design over here actually. It really makes it feel a lot more like a GT car with the somewhat customizable suspension as well as all these steering, drive modes, sport exhaust system, and these spoilers and everything. Feels like a GT car in general. And especially the comfort that's added with the larger kind of car now, with the back seats being a slightly bit larger than before, and it certainly feels like that now. And what we can do next is talk about power figures, right? So it's got a 3.0 liter flat six engine, twin turbo, making about 443 horsepower and about 390 pound-feet of torque. And considering it's a Porsche like every other German manufacturer, you're probably lining about that figure, because if we put it in Sport Plus, as we are right now, and the PDK is working amazingly, you probably heard that shift, I'm not too sure. If I put the foot down, it's instant. Crazy stuff. And as I mentioned, this is a twin turbo, barely any lag. Compared to any NA car, there's still a tiny bit, but it's barely there. And if we put this in something like normal mode, the kickdown from the PDK is insane. Really quick. There is this sort of lag, I guess, where it asks if you're sure about putting your power down, because at the end of the day, this is not really performance car. It's not a supercar kind of thing. It's meant for cruising, GT car like kind of thing, right? And that's where the turbos actually come pretty well into play. It's when you're not in the power band of where the turbos kick in. The lower down power actually helps you with city driving, where you don't put too much power down. You can just easily putt around without putting too much power, so your rear end doesn't slide out. Unlike the C8 Corvette, which my friend Krish over here has, that does indeed slide out quite a lot. It's NA V8, has a lot of power down low. That's the issue with it. So this is more of definitely a daily drivable car in that regard. And back to suspension again, it is quite a bit on the firmer side, even though we're in normal chassis mode, compared to maybe other comfort coupe cars. The steering rack is honestly pretty nice. It's got this variable ratio kind of thing going on, so it's really comfy to drive, similar to other manufacturers that do have it. So the more you turn, the more it turns more, if that makes sense. So it's not like a 1-to-1 ratio, it just keeps adding on to the steering, which just help you in sort of lower speeds kind of thing, like parking, and that really helps people with the comfort aspect of this GT car. And pretty much that's it. Let's get to the exterior with Krish.
So how was it?
Honestly, I think the drive was pretty nice, pretty fun. It's a pretty playful car, honestly. But right now, since we're in the exterior, what do you think, Krish? You like the design?
I think it's, again, as everyone's always said, it's very evolutionary instead of revolutionary. I think, you know, if you put a classic 911 right against it, it'd look very similar. I think it's only just grown or expanded, if anything.
Yeah, it's pretty similar, especially to the last generation, the 991. Personally, like, I think the 991 compared to 992, especially in this Carrera S form, I do prefer the 992.
I agree for the most part. I personally have always preferred the 991, especially the 991.2, because I think that the uprightness of the headlights on the 992 is a bit too upright, where the 991 or 991.2, especially in the refresh, it was more smooth and more sculpted looking. This one looks a bit upright, a bit froggy, but I mean, you know, that's again to be expected with Porsche. So I think it's still a really beautiful car if you just, you know, ignore that very small design thing. And yeah, I think it personally looks great. So we have the car in racing yellow.
Racing yellow.
Yeah. It's a very creative name. Thank you, Porsche. It's
Porsche.
Yeah, typical German creativity.
Truly German thing.
Yeah, German thing.
But it really works though, the yellow, honestly.
Yeah.
Really adds to like the whole like black out design, like the wheels, the mirrors, like the window trim, especially the front end. Look.
Yeah.
The yellow just pops in this car.
And most people tend to get 911s in like that like sort of silver, white, black.
Silver
only
only works in
typical luxury cars.
Yeah.
So they don't necessarily pop. They actually kind of are almost stealth. No one really looks at them, but we did get a bunch of looks with this car.
Yeah.
Especially it's very eye-popping, it's very catching, and you know, as yellow cars are, right? Not many cars on the road are yellow in the first place. So I think it's more of a color thing than the overall design, because I think in typical Porsche fashion it's very muted. So I think that's probably why it looks rather simple in terms of design.
Yeah. But you know, we can go further on to
side, I think, because
I
do want to talk about the rims. I don't know how I feel about them personally. They're very
simple. I guess that's the best way to say
it. Is them or are they brown?
Brake dust.
Oh, okay. Oh, never mind. They're black. Okay.
Brake dust.
I thought they were brown. All
Average German car, kind of sport brake kind of moment.
I will just say, just looking at the car, I really like how classic the design is.
It works, honestly.
And you know what? Let's take it back to the rear.
Right? And it still looks like a Porsche. It looks like a Porsche. There's not much to say. It looks like a Porsche. But it looks
Thanks
good.
for the insight. Anyways, okay, so yeah, there are notable changes on the 992. I think it's been discussed because this car's been out for almost 3 years now.
The light bar.
So the light bar, and also this, where you have like the upward strakes for the
vent,
brake light, and that I think this is new. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we have that, and then of course, you know, you have that nice active arrow. Spoiler
honestly, the way it just breaks off from the trunk, it looks pretty sick.
Yeah, and I really like it.
Oh yeah.
Although I have seen a lot of Panameras in traffic doing the exact same thing at like 10 miles an hour with their wing up.
No, the Panameras have a different one where it pops
out and comes like that. This one looks a lot more natural. Looks a lot better.
A lot lighter too.
Yeah.
Less mechanics.
And these ones don't break, unlike the Panamera ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too much mechanical stuff going on.
That's true. And I like the light bar that they're doing now.
Yeah.
Like a lot of brands are trying to do light bars. I think Porsche is the only one that necessarily pulls it off, because they're doing a more round rear end, where a lot of other brands are trying to go boxy, and a boxy with a light bar just sometimes it just doesn't work.
Light bar only works if it's curved.
Yeah.
It complements the car's rear end, especially these wide haunches over here. It just adds to it. As you can see, this line going down here. Pretty good thing. And probably as we go down, we can see this black trim. Mixed feeling. You know,
I think it adds good contrast, because if it was too yellow, it'd be like.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish it would continue downward.
Fair.
So there's not this weird yellow trim going down. Depends on the color, right?
I personally think it looks good, but again, yeah, that's difference of opinion, right? You know, some people might like it, some people won't. Then we have the exhaust. My fist is a bit too big. Yeah, so it's actually 4 tips, but it's in this like oval that you have on a lot of VAG cars, like the RS cars
models,
and then the Bentleys, the
GLIs. I remember seeing that.
Yep, that too. So those have these like wide ovalish chunky exhaust. I think it looks better than quad exhaust personally, and you can see that sort of like ovalish theme being carried on around with the car, because you have the mirrors, you have the greenhouse with the car. It's very oval or rotund, if anything, like me.
It just works. The whole thing works.
Yeah.
It's just
very simple. There aren't that many body lines that go across the car. It's just
smooth.
It's like sculpted by air. It's the best way to put it. Like if you were to put a solid block of clay in a wind tunnel, it'd probably come out looking like this.
But it goes back to like the historical kind of Porsche design.
Right? All Porsches have always looked like this. They have tried making different looking cars. It just doesn't work. Porsche, like they're too ingrained. The 928. Big example, right? They tried to replace the 911 with the 928 back in the 80s. Didn't work out. The car now some people might say it looks beautiful. It's always looked slightly awkward, especially in the 911
It didn't
range.
look like a Porsche.
It didn't look very
That's the thing.
Porsche. Yeah. Not, there's that. And again, it's a front engine V8. Porsches have to be rear engined flat sixes. I do like the Caymans, but at the end of the day, you don't get a Cayman because you could have got a 911.
Oh my god.
It is true, right?
It's true.
Anyone that can afford a 911 goes for a 911. Even though a Cayman, in my opinion, is a better sports car, the 911 just does more things better. Again, it's a hot take. I think the 911
trim, I think.
Yeah, the problem is the
GT4
Carrera
is
S
cool.
makes like 430 horsepower, 400 something, 443 horsepower. And how much torque again?
390.
390, around 390, right? That's in Porsche numbers. It's around 500 in each because Porsche loves to lie about their power figures. I don't like it's a supercar now, but again, that's why I've always said the Cayman feels more like a sports car. It's like, why do people buy Miatas? Right?
They're light.
Because they're light.
Power to weight ratio. That's all we gotta say.
They're light. They're rear wheel drive. The Cayman's a much lighter car. The 911's also become really heavy too. So again, this to me now fills in more of a role of a Grand Tour supercar than a sports car. Now the 911 is no longer, in my opinion, a sports car.
I can absolutely see the Grand Tour.
Yeah, it's definitely a Grand Tour. Right? It's a 2+2.
Because that's why it's grown in size, right? It's become the new GT of the Porsche lineup.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
If you don't want a GT 718 series.
I definitely annoyed a lot of people by making that Cayman comparison. They make more sense as a 2-car garage solution versus where you have a 911 where it's a 1-car solution, right?
Something
you can daily it. You can use these. Well, you can't use this in the winter. But you can use the 4S in the winter, unless you're brave enough. I mean, these tire chains
should work.
Yeah, snow tires. I'm gonna ask the owner to try it out in the winter.
I would say that maybe the 4S is a better solution for that, but might as well.
Who knows? All right.
All right. All right, now we're on the inside. And this brand new dash looks very nice, honestly. Like this stack design with this yellow trimming as well as this leather upholstery up there with this, I think this is plastic. Looks like metal. A silver gray kind of trim. Everything just works.
I think, they've done a really good job future-proofing this cabin, honestly, because another thing I want to move on to is the dials and the gauge clusters. Now, there's another company who's famous for having a center tack that's yellow. It's gone. They've replaced it with a software.
Wait, who was that?
Ferrari.
Oh! Yeah.
They've removed that center analog tack that was like the biggest thing for a Ferrari. Now it's like all digital.
I'm glad Porsche still kept the physical one.
Exactly.
Like there's still digital ones, don't get me wrong. It's on the side.
Yeah.
So you can still customize it, have the map on the right.
Exactly.
But still have that very Porsche mechanical tachometer.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not against screens, but something about having a physical tack that
just seeing it go up and down.
Yeah, seeing it go up and down.
And personally, with this sort of modern take on like Porsche's old kind of gauge cluster design, I really like it.
I think it's great.
Really modernized.
I do have one complaint.
Yes.
I can't see what that and that says.
It's a Porsche thing.
Yeah.
It's a Porsche thing.
Depending on how I'm looking, I can't even see my sport chrono or my speedometer, but luckily I have a digital. Like, honestly, these are all extras to me. When I'm driving a Porsche, I'm driving like...
Heck, you wouldn't even care about that.
I'm driving quite literally like God's version of a sports car. Like the best, sports car on the market, in my personal opinion, or Grand Touring car technically. But
and with sort of still on the topic of modernization, the gauge cluster, you notice on the tachometer, there's still a screen on the underside for your speedometer.
Exactly. So you don't
place really well.
You don't need it. Like you don't need, and you can see like what gear you're in.
You don't even notice it. It just feels natural.
Like this feels perfect to me. And I again, as I think that driving should be like, especially when you're driving a Porsche, everything else should be secondary, especially when you're driving a 911. The most important thing is your RPMs, your speed, and the sort of sensation that Porsches give you.
Yeah, like the time you complain about, you don't even
you don't need this
cares
stuff,
about
right?
that.
Again,
you have the Sport Chrono right there.
The Sport Chrono, look, there you go. There's a clock.
It's optional,
That's the option.
It's an option. And let's actually move on to the steering wheel since we're on the topic of that area.
So again, I think, again, as I said, it blocks up the gauges. But besides that, it's perfectly fine. It's very nice and grippy. I think it's a bit too thin. I wish it was a bit more chong. Like, you know what? This fine. Like this, where you put your thumbs and where you hold it. This is really nice.
Because that's where you're supposed to put your hand.
It's just that
right?
normally I just sometimes hold it, or sometimes I do this specifically.
And one very important part is this drive mode dial. That's an option apparently. And the button in the middle gives you a certain amount of boost. Not too sure. Yeah. For you to go even faster when you launch.
You know the AMG GT, which is a competitor to this car?
Yes.
Has a similar one here too, but that one has that sort of screen.
The screen is cool, but it means you're taking your eyes off the road.
Yes, but I kind of like that sort of pomp and circumstance that the Mercedes gives you that the Porsche kind of doesn't. You know, one more thing about Porsches is just the fact that there's no sort of compromise with anything in these cars.
I think there's only one compromise. It's the infotainment right there. Yeah. We've tried it multiple different Porsches with the same system. It just lagged for me. Yeah. For something over 160,000 in Canada, this is not acceptable. No, this is too laggy.
It's good for a system maybe 2 or 3 years ago, but looking how, oh wow, that never mind. Yeah. I think what they've done, I understand the whole infotainment thing. I wish you'd outsource it to Audi, which Audi does better MMI.
Yep, you're not even spending extra money. It's part of the same group.
So. Exactly. You know, instead of
developing your own. Exactly. Yeah. And especially the fact that a lot of the sports stuff, like lap times and everything, go through the system. That's why I'm super critical about the infotainment. The racing stuff all goes through this infotainment. Yeah. And so that really comes into importance when it starts lagging or anything.
Oh, wait. Also, this.
That's an exhaust button.
Yeah, the valves. For the exhaust.
Valve exhaust.
Also an
suspension button.
Also an option.
And moving on to the seat, right? Bolstering's pretty nice. Yeah. I wouldn't try the rear seats.
And you know what? Just want to talk about this door card over here.
Door card is nice.
This is
the yellow stitching going around everything with this, like the speaker design, right? Like manufacturers usually hate speakers because that means you have to put holes in somewhere, but this is really nicely integrated. And once again, the plastic is not cheap feeling. It's not. People still question if it's metal or plastic. Yeah. So that's how you know it's
not
good,
your Mitsubishi Mirage or base Toyota Corolla.
There.
Yeah, I know.
But okay, for example, Mercedes plastic, right?
That's
way worse.
Yeah.
This is
nice plastic. This is plastic that got a job and went to school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because honestly, it's the philosophy of you're not going to touch it, right? You're not going to touch this. You're not going to touch that. Door handle, I wish was metal.
Yeah, they should have made this aluminum or something. Or even magnesium. That's even lighter than plastic. A magnesium door handle. I get it.
Money.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have 160 grand if you used magnesium, right?
That's true.
Yeah, because these are mass manufactured cars.
Yeah, they're no longer the hand-built sport car built in Maranello or.
Probably now it's just Chris's turn to drive. Talk about his driving impressions. And stuff.
Be overly critical of that.
Yeah.
So I tend to be pretty critical when it comes to how a car feels, how a car acts. And so far, I'm just in a normal driving mode. Just going to switch it over to sport. That way I get the maximum feel from this car. We'll say this, the suspension definitely is very hunkered down. I don't feel any body roll at all. It feels stiff. It feels built and, dialed down, which I really love about Porsches. It's the Porsche magic. Ride is a bit harsh, of course, but, that's, again, it's natural for a 911 in the first place. So there is that. Again, steering is so nice and direct. Again, I kind of miss the sort of steering in newer cars, and I'm just glad that, this has this really good electrical variable rack. A lot of 911 people were not very happy about, when the 996 originally came out, or even the 997. They were just, complaining about it's like a sacrilege. Why would you remove full hydraulic steering? And you know what? I don't think I necessarily miss that sort of feeling in this car. And it's, again, the turbos, you don't ever feel any lag. Again, that's the Porsche magic of the twin turbos. You have two turbos, you eliminate all sorts of lag that, most other turbocharged cars have. This car still feels very naturally aspirated. And again, if you just feel the way this thing just dials in and goes right into a corner, It's very Porsche. You can take corners at very high speeds in this car without ever, having or feeling the, that sort of insecurity that you have in other cars when you're on really tight twisties. This thing just goes. And it barks. This thing barks. It's honestly sort of intoxicating in a sort of way. Of course, we're going to see how this acts over a rail, or a railroad that's coming up. So I'm just going to drop this back into normal. Unfortunately, this car doesn't have an axle lift system, which other cars in its category do. I think it is an option that wasn't spec'd on this car. So I'm just going to take it like this, and then back. Yeah, honestly, normal. It's pretty comfortable. It just feels like any other car when you are wanting to drive this normally. It's, it soaks up the bumps perfectly. And I've been in SUVs with cushy suspension that make you feel the bumps twice. In this car, not like that at all. You feel the bump once, and it's very, very well damped to the point where, again, it just feels like you're in a normal car. Of course, till you do that. Of course, I'm not going all out there. That was only about half throttle, and it just goes. And also, this car loves to hang its revs, which I do really appreciate, even though we are in normal mode. But that's perfectly fine. It's just expecting me to be hard or beat on the car, which I will do in a short second. But overall driving impressions, this car doesn't feel like it just has 443 horsepower. I've been in cars with 500-600 horsepower before. This feels just like that. And I just have to think that, Porsche kind of underrated their power figures for this car in true German fashion. Again, I don't know if it's the weight, because the curb weight of these cars is in the mid 3,000 pounds, so they're not exactly light either. But again, partially I just think maybe it's just the 390 pound-feet of torque, which is quite high for something of this weight, or even of this class. So again, it just makes me sort of think that something's going on in the numbers game with this car. Alright, so we're about to highway test this car. So I was driving it around. I do have a couple small complaints, mainly with the engine braking is a bit extreme in this car, so it doesn't really let you coast to a stop. It kind of just pulls you right back, which I'm not necessarily the fan of. Although the brakes are quite nice. If you remember the RS7 review, those brakes are a bit too touchy because they're quite a bit bigger. But I do really like that this has more quality of life things in comparison to that big Audi. So we're about to see how this acts, do a couple small highway pulls. If I try to move this towards sport, or let's say sport plus, right? Foot down now. It's seamless. It's almost telepathic. It knows what gear I want to be in when I want to be in that gear. I can't, PDKs are known to be the best in the business when it comes to dual clutch transmissions, and I get it. I finally understand why. This goes right away, it's instantly in that rev range. And this thing goes up to 7,500 RPM, which is pretty good for a flat 6, So again, I personally think that in terms of driving experience, this is very much a Porsche. And, this kind of makes me question why you'd want a Turbo S, in the sense that it has the speed and sort of nature ferocity of a Turbo S, while costing almost $70,000 less. And, how much more speed could you really want out of a car? And, I guess that's more of a question that comes down to when we test a Turbo S. What really makes that Turbo S a Turbo S? So I guess, I'll have to get back to you guys on that. All right.
So then, what do you think about this Porsche? Let us know your thoughts on it by leaving a comment. Also, massive thanks to Zark for lending his car for us to review. Make sure to check out his Instagram in the description below. And if you're still here, we have some bonus clips that we think you would enjoy.
Put on your debit card, your credit card, don't pay it off. Oh shit. This looks so fast.
It does.
2 guys, 5 months.
Thank you. Bro.
Take your damn banana. Good morning.
Huh?
Good morning.
Good morning.
And then it went to flat 6. Don't throw it.
Yo, damn.
Yo, new. What if we saw
There's a cup holder here.
Did you not know that?
No.
What the fuck?
What? I've never sat in the passenger seat.
Oh
It adds to the sort of experience, you know, when you have a Porsche. Then
This one.
Oh.
On the side. This side one's an option.
that one's an option. I thought this. Oh, okay.
I would be worried if that's an option, but
What the fuck?